At the worst point around the Great Recession, 1 in 10 Americans couldn't find work. Today the jobs picture is much better. The unemployment rate is only 4.7%, a level considered at, or very close to, full employment. There are some concerns that the unemployment rate is so low because many people have stopped looking for work out of frustration and are no longer counted in the workforce. The so-called labor force participation rate is at its lowest level since the 1970s. Baby boomers retiring is causing some of the decline in the workforce, but it doesn't explain all of it. The U.S. economy is in the midst of one of the longest growth spurts ever. The problem is the growth hasn't been stellar. In recent years, the U.S. has expanded at a rate of 2.4% a year. That's well below the historic average of over 3% growth. This year is shaping up to be another B-grade year. The economy only expanded 0.8% in the first quarter. Growth is expected to pick up in the spring and summer, but not by much. The Federal Reserve predicts 2% growth for 2016. America has been on a hiring spree lately. The U.S. added jobs in 2014 and 2015 at the fastest pace since the boom years of the late 1990s. Hiring has slowed a bit in 2016. May was a particularly weak month, raising concerns about whether the recovery is starting to stall. So far this year, the U.S. has gained 748,000 new jobs. That's a lot lower than prior years when over 1 million jobs had already been created by this point in the year. Overall, the U.S. has added 14.2 million jobs since employment hit a low in early 2010. It's a figure President Obama cites often. One of America's biggest economic problems is that wages and salaries aren't growing much. A typical middle-class family earns $53,657. That's almost the same amount today as 20 years ago, according to U.S. Census data that's been adjusted for inflation. Inequality is picking up in the U.S., partly because incomes for the middle class and working class aren't growing. The top, however, is doing well. While America has been on a hiring spree, the quality of the new jobs is mixed. Of the 10 fastest growing jobs in the country, half of them pay under $25,000 a year, according to the Labor Department. That's so low that a family of 3 could qualify for food stamps. Gas prices have fallen dramatically in recent years. Most Americans paid less than $2 per gallon for regular gas in early 2016. In June, the cost jumped to $2.33, but that's still very low. The dramatic plunge in prices is because so many countries around the world, including the United States, are pumping record amounts of oil. The low prices are helping Americans feel richer since they can save hundreds of dollars at the gas station. While many focus on the fact that America now has over $19 trillion in debt, the better way to look at that number is to ask how much debt does the U.S. have as a percent of the entire economy, that is GDP. It's akin to looking at how much debt a person has compared to their annual income so you can get a sense of how easily they can pay the debt off. The U.S. went from a 35% debt-to-GDP ratio in 2006 to a 75% ratio now, largely because the government spent extra money during the Great Recession to try to revive the economy. America is nowhere near countries like Greece or Japan that have ratios around 200%, but government debt is on the rise in the U.S. The recession was partly caused by a housing crisis. Home prices plummeted as Americans lost their homes to foreclosure and people lost their jobs and couldn't afford to buy property. Some parts of America such as Florida and Illinois were hit especially hard. Before the crisis, the average home price was around $222,000. The good news is home prices have finally recovered back to that level in 2016, according to data on existing home sales from the National Association of Realtors. Getting a mortgage has been tough since the financial crisis. The good news for those who can get a mortgage is rates are at historic lows. In May, The 30-year fixed-rate mortgage fell back to a mere 3.60% in May. That's near the all-time low of 3.35% in 2012, according to Freddie Mac. A big reason mortgage rates have been so cheap is the Federal Reserve has kept interest rates low. The Fed is contemplating raising rates again in 2016, which could cause mortgage rates, and other borrowing rates like credit card interest rates, to rise a bit. Show me the money, many Americans are saying. Wages haven't picked up much despite the economy continuing to grow and unemployment falling below 5%. Wage growth finally rose to 2.5% per year in May of 2016, but that's still well below the historic average of 3.5% per year, or more, that Main Street and Wall Street expect.